What if the moon was twice as large in the sky? Imagine stepping outside on a clear evening and looking upward to find the moon, not as the familiar glowing disk you have always known, but looming above you, immense and overwhelming, twice as large in the night sky as it appears today. The sight alone would be breathtaking, surreal, almost otherworldly, as if the heavens had shifted and the balance of the cosmos had been rewritten. Such a change would alter not only the way the night sky looks, but also the very rhythms of Earth itself, reshaping tides, nights, seasons, and even the trajectory of human history. To understand the implications, we must journey through a thought experiment that blends astronomy, geology, and human imagination, visualizing in vivid detail what life might be like under the gaze of a moon that dominates the firmament with twice its current size. The first thing to consider is that if the moon were to appear twice as large in the sky, this would not necessarily mean that the moon itself has doubled in size. Instead, it would most likely mean that the moon has moved significantly closer to Earth. Currently, the moon orbits our planet at an average distance of about 238,000 miles. For it to appear twice as large, it would need to be nearly half that distance away. Imagine the moon pulled in toward us, its gravitational embrace far stronger, its surface features visible in remarkable detail to the naked eye, every crater and mountain etched against the velvet black sky, like a colossal sphere hanging just above our heads. Such proximity would bring dramatic changes to the tides. At present, the moon's gravity pulls at the oceans, creating the rise and fall of tides that coastal civilizations have relied upon for centuries. If the moon were suddenly so much closer, the strength of its gravitational pull on Earth's waters would multiply, leading to tides far higher and more destructive than anything we experience today. Coastal cities would face floods on a scale never seen before, as water surged inland with each cycle, reshaping shorelines and devastating human settlements. Entire ecosystems would be transformed as marine life that depends on current tidal patterns struggled to adapt to violent new rhythms. Picture beaches erased beneath roaring walls of water, harbors swallowed, and rivers reversing their flow as the gravitational tug of the moon overwhelmed their natural course. Beyond the oceans, the stronger gravitational bond between Earth and the moon would have consequences for our planet's very stability. Earth's axial tilt, the gentle angle at which it spins relative to its orbit, is stabilized in large part by the presence of the moon. If the moon were closer, its stabilizing effect would intensify, potentially locking Earth into a more rigid tilt. Seasons as we know them might become less pronounced, with climates shifting into new patterns that could either stabilize or destabilize global weather systems. Imagine vast regions becoming locked into longer winters or longer summers, disrupting agriculture, migration patterns, and the delicate balance of life that thrives on seasonal change. Nights themselves would be profoundly different. A moon twice as large in the sky would shine with a brilliance that dwarfs the one we know today. The reflected sunlight would pour down like a second sun, bathing landscapes in a ghostly silver glow. The stars that we cherish on clear nights might fade behind this overwhelming luminescence, the Milky Way obscured, constellations dimmed. The romance of stargazing would change forever, replaced by a dazzling sky dominated by the immense and brilliant moon. Human culture, mythology, and imagination, which have long been shaped by the quiet mystery of the night sky, would instead be colored by this blazing lunar presence. Our ancestors might have worshipped the moon with even greater reverence, seeing it not as a distant companion, but as a commanding celestial neighbor that filled half the heavens. The moon's increased gravity would not only move the oceans, but also stress the very crust of the Earth. Tectonic activity could intensify as the planet's surface strained under the pull. Volcanoes might erupt more frequently, earthquakes could become more common, and the shifting of land masses might accelerate. Entire mountain ranges might rise faster, and deep valleys could collapse more often, all driven by the tug of a moon that no longer kept a polite distance. The world beneath our feet would tremble in ways we can scarcely imagine, making life on Earth more volatile and unpredictable. The consequences would extend even into the dance of celestial mechanics. A moon pulled closer would orbit faster, racing around Earth with far greater speed. The length of a month would shorten dramatically, perhaps lasting only a fraction of the time it does now. The familiar rhythms of the calendar, tied so closely to the lunar cycle, would vanish, forcing humanity to devise new ways to measure time. The moon, we have always seen as a slow and steady companion, would become a restless, fast-moving beacon in the sky, a reminder that even the heavens can shift in ways that unsettle the foundations of life. Imagine how human history might have unfolded beneath such a moon. Early civilizations would have developed in a world where tides raged, nights shone like day, and the very ground trembled with lunar-induced fury. Myths and legends would likely paint the moon as a fierce and dangerous deity, a power to be feared rather than adored. Architecture, agriculture, and navigation would all evolve under the shadow of this cosmic giant, shaping societies in ways utterly unlike the path we know. Perhaps great coastal cities would never rise at all, deterred by relentless floods. Perhaps nocturnal cultures would flourish, able to work and travel beneath nights almost as bright as daylight. Human art and storytelling would be filled with imagery of the moon as a central force, not just a symbol of beauty and mystery, but as the supreme master of fate on Earth. Yet there is another layer to consider, one that reaches beyond the immediate effects. If the moon were closer, its gravitational relationship with Earth would not be stable for long. Over time, the friction between the two bodies would cause energy to be lost, drawing the moon ever closer still. Eventually, it could cross a critical boundary known as the Roche limit, the point at which Earth's gravity would begin to tear the moon apart. Instead of one large glowing orb in the sky, we might one day see a ring system form around our planet, similar to the rings of Saturn, created from the shattered remains of the moon itself. The sight would be spectacular, but the process leading there would be catastrophic, with debris raining down upon Earth, scarring its surface and threatening all life. To envision such a reality is to confront the fragility of the balance that sustains us. The moon, we know today, is not just a passive ornament in the night sky. It is a guardian of our stability, a regulator of our tides, and a quiet partner in the story of life on Earth. To imagine it twice as large is to imagine a world at once beautiful and terrifying, bathed in radiant light, but trembling under immense forces. It would be a world where humanity might still rise, adapt, and endure, but in forms and ways far different from the path we have taken. Perhaps the greatest reflection is this: the cosmos is finely tuned, every distance and orbit a delicate balance forged over billions of years. The moon, in its current place, gives us the tides that nourish our coasts, the seasons that feed our fields, the nights that inspire our wonder. If it loomed twice as large, much of what we know would unravel, and the Earth we call home would be transformed beyond recognition. As you look up tonight and see the moon in its familiar size and glow, remember that its distance is not mere chance. It is the quiet foundation of the world as we know it, the unseen hand that steadies our planet through the ages. And so, we are left with a haunting question. If so much depends on this fragile balance, how many other worlds in the vast expanse of the universe never found their perfect moon? And how rare and precious is the harmony that allows us to gaze upward in peace at the silver light that has guided us since the dawn of time? If the moon were truly twice as large in the sky, the human experience of wonder and fear would intertwine every night. Imagine a full moon rising on the horizon, so vast that it seems almost close enough to touch, its silvery face dominating the heavens. Shadows would stretch long and sharp beneath its light, forests and fields painted with a brightness so strong that torches, lanterns, and even modern streetlights might feel unnecessary. The creatures of the night would be forever altered, for many rely on darkness for survival. Predators would hunt with new ease under the glowing lunar floodlight, while prey would struggle to hide in the endless shimmer. Entire ecosystems would be forced to adapt, and many might collapse in the struggle to endure such a change. Humanity itself would feel the weight of this presence not only in practical ways, but in the spiritual and emotional dimensions of existence. Throughout history, the moon has been a symbol of cycles, romance, and mystery. Its phases have guided calendars, rituals, and myths. A moon twice as large would magnify this influence, perhaps leading to cultures that saw it as the ultimate divine force, one whose every movement dictated the fates of individuals and nations. Wars might be fought in its name, temples built to capture its light, and philosophies centered on its overwhelming dominance. The moon would not merely inspire poetry, but command reverence as a godlike entity. Science too would have evolved along different lines. Astronomers would study its surface with an intimacy far earlier in history, as craters, mountains, and valleys would be visible to the naked eye in extraordinary detail. Ancient humans might have sketched its landscapes long before the invention of telescopes, imagining civilizations carved into its plains. When telescopes did finally come, they would confirm details already suspected, and the dream of reaching the moon might have arisen much sooner in human ambition. Perhaps the great leaps of space exploration would not have waited until the 20th century, but centuries earlier as nations sought to claim the powerful celestial body that hung so close and inviting in the night. The psychological impact of living beneath such a dominating moon cannot be understated. Every child, every adult, every generation would grow up under the watchful gaze of a presence that filled half the sky. Dreams would be shaped by it, fears heightened by its overwhelming glow, and imaginations stretched by the thought of living so near to another world. The moon would not feel like a distant companion, but a constant neighbor pressing against our sky, its face looming and unavoidable, demanding attention at every turn. Yet with such magnificence comes danger, the constant strain on Earth's crust, the chaos in the tides, the endless natural disasters triggered by gravitational stress would make survival a far greater challenge. Civilization might flourish in only certain regions, far from the destructive tides and seismic violence. Humanity might cluster inland, creating great cultures in the heartlands rather than along coasts. History itself could diverge, with trade routes, settlements, and empires forming along rivers and plains, untouched by the wrath of lunar-driven floods. Over time, the relationship between Earth and this enormous moon might settle into a new kind of stability, but it would be a stability defined by extremes, a world shaped as much by destruction as by opportunity. In the end, the thought of a moon twice as large is both wondrous and terrifying. It paints a picture of a world where beauty and danger are inseparable, where human beings live beneath an awe-inspiring sky that commands their respect and reshapes their destiny. To gaze upward in such a world would be to see not just a companion, but a reminder of the fragile balance that allows life to thrive on Earth. And perhaps the most profound question left to us is this: if such a world had existed, would humanity still have risen to dominate its planet? Or would we have been forever humbled, our lives shaped by forces too powerful to master, our histories forever written in the silver blaze of a moon that refused to remain distant? If humanity were forced to exist under a sky where the moon was twice as large, the way we perceive our place in the cosmos might be transformed forever. The moon would not simply be a satellite orbiting quietly above. It would become an overwhelming constant presence, like a guardian, or perhaps a looming reminder of our fragility. On nights of the full moon, sleep cycles would be disrupted for countless species, including humans, as the light pouring down would rival twilight itself. Farmers might adapt by working longer hours in the fields under the glow. Sailors would need to rethink navigation as tidal cycles become far less predictable. And architects would design coastal defenses not for rare catastrophes, but for constant surges of water that reshape landscapes every few days. Rivers might reverse course more often, coastal settlements could be wiped out regularly, and humanity might develop technology much earlier to tame and redirect the oceans, building walls, dams, and canals centuries before industrialization. The moon's pull would also change Earth's spin in subtle but important ways, possibly slowing it faster than it does in our timeline. Days might grow longer at an accelerated pace, altering weather, winds, and climate over generations. Imagine a world where one day is not 24 hours, but 25 or even 26, where the rhythm of life bends slowly under the influence of a giant moon, always tugging at our world. Culturally, the moon's dominance might reduce humanity's fixation on the sun. While the sun is essential for life and energy, its presence is constant and predictable. The moon, however, changes night to night, and in this alternate reality, it would be both awe-inspiring and frightening. Entire calendars could be structured around its phases rather than solar cycles. Perhaps humanity would call years not by solar turns, but by a sequence of great lunar events. Eclipses, which would be far more common, might be seen as divine omens, each one casting dramatic shadows as the enormous disk blotted out or was swallowed by the Earth's shadow. Fear and worship might intertwine as people huddled under the blood-red light of a lunar eclipse that seemed to fill half the sky. Science fiction might not even be fiction at all in such a world. The moon would be so inviting, so near that even primitive societies could imagine ways of reaching it. Myths of ladders to the moon, bridges of light, or journeys of gods would perhaps inspire genuine attempts at reaching its surface. Catapults, balloons, and rockets might not be centuries delayed, but actively pursued as humanity gazes at the surface details visible without instruments. Whole empires might rise and fall around the quest to reach the great celestial body, and whoever managed to touch its surface first would be immortalized as not merely an explorer, but as someone who touched the very face of the gods. But beyond all the chaos and wonder lies the deeper question. If the moon had always been this large, would we even exist at all? The violence of tides and tectonics might have stunted the fragile development of early human societies, preventing agriculture from flourishing or destroying settlements before they could grow. Perhaps humanity would never have had the luxury to create art, science, and culture, but would instead live in a constant state of survival, fighting against the sea and land reshaped again and again by the power of the moon. And yet, if we did endure, perhaps that very struggle would forge us stronger, more adaptable, more inventive, capable of creating tools and systems to survive under conditions that would seem impossible today. It is a vision of a world both alien and familiar, one where the night sky would never be forgotten, where every generation would live and die beneath a looming presence that could not be ignored. And maybe the true reflection is this: the moon, as it is now, distant yet close, balanced in size and pull, may be the perfect companion for life on Earth. Its presence regulates our tides, stabilizes our axis, inspires our imaginations, and yet does not overwhelm us with its force. To imagine it any larger is to glimpse both wonder and peril, a reminder of how fragile the balance of our world truly is. And so, the question lingers: if the moon were twice as large, would life as we know it still be possible? Or is the world we already have the only one where the delicate harmony between earth and sky allows us to gaze upward in awe rather than in fear?